that we think in Vedanta, that there is a consciousness and mind is a reflection. That is not how they see it. They see that this is a flickering consciousness that appears in the mind each, when five skandhas come together, and it's a continuous of one lighting the other one, but there is no underlying consciousness which is being reflected there. That's the bottom line. And what they claim is that it is of essence is emptiness, that there is nothing underlying this. All these skandhas come together and then extinguish themselves, and what is left is shunyata. That is the idea. And they emphasize the idea of impermanence, that all these things are, none of them is permanent entity per se. That is the idea. So they basically deny the idea there is a permanent entity that is watching the emergence of non-permanent or impermanent entity. It doesn't think so. Where it stops, Buddhism stops at the first level, that there is an impermanent entity that keeps on coming in a stream, comes to life and just goes away, and comes to life and goes away like that. So there is nothing beyond that. And they call it anatma, or non-self, or anatta in Pali, or anatman in Sanskrit. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so we talked about major schools are Hinayana or Theravada, Vajrayana and Mahayana. Theravada is the original one, which the scriptures are primarily in Pali. Most of those teachings are classically ascribed to Buddha himself. Mahayana is a sort of a modification of Hinayana, and a lot of teaching that came about was from Nagarjuna. And then Mahayana is among the largest religion of or largest subgroup of Buddhism in general, and that is spread much more than Hinayana or Theravada Buddhism. And Vajrayana is sort of a close to Tantra in Northeast, which is a component of Mahayana and Theravada as well, but has a lot of resemblance to Tantra system which evolved in Northeast India. And this part is much more prevalent in Tibetan Buddhism, which also represents physically in the same region. So a lot of connection to Tantra in Vajrayana system. All right, and it carries both components of Mahayana and Hinayana. All right, let's move on. So this guy gives you a picture of where the Tibetan Buddhism is. The yellow one is Mahayana, which is dominant in China, Japan, and other places. Southeast Asia, dominant is Sri Lanka as well, is a Hinayana path, and the orange one is the Tibetan Buddhism, which is Vajrayana. Okay. All right, let's move on. Yeah.
So, India map માં કોઈ કલર નથી. ઇન્ડિયામાં એટલું બધું નથી બુદ્ધિઝમ રહ્યું?
ના, નથી રહ્યું. There are few flags here and there.
Yeah.
Now I mentioned about Navyana is the fourth school, which was started by Ambedkar. Navya means new. Hinayana, Mahayana, and Navyana. So there are few flags here and there of Buddhism in India, but it is not enough to represent as a picture, because it is not confined to any specific region per se. And most of the Buddhists in India.
But it's so.
Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
Most of the Buddhists in India now are converted Dalits. Many of the Dalits under Ambedkar got converted to Buddhism. Original Buddhists are not that many. There may be some, but most of them essentially converted to Hinduism around 6th century. Samrat Gupta, Chandragupta and Maurya, until that point, Buddhism was dominant one, and after that, essentially it metamorphosed into back to Hinduism that existed prior to Buddha.
Shankaracharya.
Right. So Shankaracharya basically converted most of the India back to Hinduism.
Back to Hinduism. Okay.
That makes sense now.
Because Ambedkar is pretty recent, right? That's what I was wondering.
Gandhiji is contemporary.
Right.
Indian Constitution was written by Ambedkar. He died around
Oh, really?
yeah, he died around 1956.
Yeah.
All right, so Mahayana Buddhism. So we talked about three levels. Nirvanakaya is a historical Buddha. Sambhogakaya is celestial Buddha or Bodhisattva. Dharmakaya is an absolute formless entity, similar to what you will call it to be Brahman or formless nature of reality, called that way. But they call that to be Shunyata, not necessarily Purnata. Nirmanakaya is temporary, Sambhogakaya is beginning, but it has a beginning, but it's endless because it's a continuation. Bodhisattva will continue to prevail over eternity, more or less. Dharmakaya is basically similar to, call it to equivalent to Brahman, that there is no beginning, there is no end. All right, let's move on. So Buddhism is basically, we talked about three kayas. I already explained the three kayas are the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya, which you can see in a close resemblance to Nirmanakaya being human form, Sambhogakaya being closer to Sagun Brahman, and Dharmakaya closer to Nirgun Brahman. But remember, that's a diametrically opposite viewpoint. Nirmanakaya Dharmakaya is not necessarily fullness of Brahman. It is emptiness of Shunyata. That is the ultimate reality from Buddhist point of view. All right, move on. Mahayana doctrine of Bodhisattva. The main tenets are compassion and karuna and wisdom. So that is the ultimate reality, ultimate way somebody gets the status of Bodhisattva. So basically, an enlightened sage goes through the process and acquires a characteristics or similar status to Buddha, like Tirthankara in Jainism, or any rishi of Hinduism, or any sage like Raman Maharshi, RMK, or whoever you want to be, something similar to that. That is what it boils down to. A state of perfection is Bodhisattva, who devotes himself altruistically to the service of others, putting aside all self-serving notions in contrast to preceding pursuit of self-interest, of liberation as to Hinayana. And I think I explained that last time also. Hinayana concentrates on salvation for himself or herself and not worry too much about what about others. Mahayana emphasizes the other way around. Mahayana emphasizes not only salvation for himself or herself, but enlightenment and helping the world as it is. Hinayana's argument is that if you get into that situation that Mahayana says, you will never ever be able to dissociate yourself from the world. So you better just leave it and move on thinking about yourself. Mahayana doesn't accept that. So think about આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં આપણે હિન્દુઇઝમમાં સંન્યાસ અને પ્રવૃત્તિ, નિવૃત્તિ અને પ્રવૃત્તિ are two divergent pathways. Rishis were sannyasis. Many of these dharma gurus are sannyasi. They don't live in this world. And most of us are pravrutti. They live in the world. So Gita kind of emphasized the idea of pravrutti. Upanishads kind of emphasized the idea of nivrutti, because they were written primarily by the people who lived in jungle, or at least lived away from the regular day-to-day civilization. So those were the two different paths. Now typically, the one who were sannyasis believed their path is superior. And most of the grahasti, people like us, accepted that tacitly, that those guys who are able to leave this world are at a higher level. Same thing applies in Christianity. Two basic sects, Catholicism and Protestantism. Catholicism emphasizes that all those priests have to be brahmachari. They cannot be married, they cannot have their family. Nuns and priests are supposed to be celibate. They have to live the life, regular life, day-to-day life, and immerse themselves in whatever activities the church wants them to do. Protestant, on the other side, the reverend, they are called, Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther the 15th century reformer who created a Protestant movement as an opposition to Catholicism that existed for 1,000 years. So they emphasize that Reverend is the one who lives in this world, runs the church, marries and does everything in the family, and is involved in the activity of sansar, if you want to call that to be. So he is not away from it. The idea is basically, can you live in the world and be also away from the world? That's the idea. And you can argue endlessly, there is no easy way out. Like Vallabhacharya emphasized pravrutti marg. They are already married and they have their own kids and kids, and they become gadi wala. I mean, they become they acquire the gadi. But the Gujarati dharma. Swaminarayan guys are basically like other way around, that they don't live in this world, they have to live away from everything, that kind of thing. So you can see the diversity of the opinion on both sides. The next one, the state of mind of Bodhisattva is, yeah.
I have a question for Anil Bhai actually. Anil Bhai, one of the emails some time ago that you had what you had posted in the WhatsApp said at the end of that Swaminarayan came from Pushti Marg.
Yes.
I think you had written something, if I recall.
Yes, you are right. Swaminarayan Pushti Marg, right? Because what the philosophy of Pushti Marg is basically was adopted by Swaminarayan. So there is some kind of a reference that I saw, that but the thing is that they saw in Pushti Marg this Gadi sort of thing, and they said no, we do not want that. So they almost opposite of that. But જે રામાનંદ સ્વામી હતા એને એના ગુરુ કોઈ ખોવા જોઈએ કે જેની વલ્લભાચાર્યની ઇન્ફ્લુઅન્સ હશે. એનો સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનના ગુરુ રામાનંદ સ્વામી હતા. And I don't know who Ramanand Swami's guru were, but there is some link between those two things. Yes,
they are different in terms of inheriting the Gadi and all that.
Yes.
માર્ગમાં તો એક મહારાજ પછી એના ગયા પછી જે છોકરા હોય they inherit that. એવું હોય છે ને?
એ છે ને, એ સ્વામિનારાયણ એમણે જોયું કે there is a kind of એમાં કંઈક દૂષણ ઘૂસી જાય છે. એ ગાદી પરંપરા જો હોય તો એમાં, and there was a huge case, I think it happened before Swaminarayan એમના બોમ્બે હાઈકોર્ટમાં એક મોટો કેસ ચાલ્યો હતો એક સ્વામી આપણે પુષ્ટિ માર્ગના મોટા ગુરુ પર, અને મારા ખ્યાલ પ્રમાણે સુરતની ગાદી પર હતા. એમનું નામ હતું મહારાજ. નર્મદના જમાનામાં કેસ થયેલો. And because of that, I think Swaminarayan is very particularly keen on not having Gadi and not having Sansari Purush.
That was a major scandal, and there is a book written.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if Anil Bhai
Ashok Bhai, a book મેં લગભગ 7 to 8 ચેપ્ટર વાંચ્યા અને એ મૂકી દીધી. એ વંચાય એવી જ નથી એ બુક જ. બહુ ડર્ટી, બહુ ખરાબ બુક છે એ તો.
I started reading the same book, and I did the same after reading a few chapters. I just gave up on it because it's really, but it is supposed to be a real scandal that happened.
કયા બુકની વાત કરજો અશોકભાઈ? I'm sorry.
મહારાજા.
There is a book called
મહારાજા. ગુજરાતીમાં છે, પણ બહુ જ ખરાબ, એટલે બહુ જ ખરાબ. 4-5 કે 7 ટાઈમ વાંચ્યા હશે, અને મેં પછી અશોકભાઈને આપી દીધી. રેણુકાબેન ભગત પાસે હતી ને મેં ત્યાંની પછી બોરો કરી દીધી, પણ બહુ ખરાબ.
But it is all true story.
પણ આપણા મગજમાં ઇમ્પ્રેશન બહુ જ ખરાબ હતું, એટલે તમને કાંઈ ન કહી શકું.
અંદર બધું આવું જ હોય તો
આટલું ખરાબ હશે એ મને ખબર જ નહોતી. બહુ ખરાબ.
they went into the court.
બધા જ એમાં અંદર તમે ઉતરો ને એટલે તમને વધારે ખબર પડે એટલે તમે બહાર જ નીકળી જાઓ.
આમાં 4 થી 5 ચેપ્ટર વાંચશો ને તમને એમ થાય કે આવું જો રિલિજનમાં હોય તો બરાબર છે, આપણે ક્યાંય નથી કોઈને માનવું ગુરુ કે. બહુ ખરાબ બુક છે.
The issue આપણા માટે we are, I mean, obviously everywhere the ભ્રષ્ટાચાર તો થવાનો. I mean, people use the religion for the enrichment of themselves in some way, at least some of them, or at least use the religious pretext in some way. તો અહીંયા આગળ તમે ચર્ચમાં પણ સેમ જ પ્રોબ્લેમ છે, right?
Yeah.
So many priests and so many reverends are basically exploiting this religious connection and swindling the money and whatnot, But that's the way it is. But coming back to Ashok Bhai's question, by the way, Swaminarayan theology is closer to Ramanuja's theology, not Vallabhacharya's theology. It is Vishishta Advait concept, similar to that. And second, Swaminarayan actually went to court to claim is that they are not Hindu.
Oh, that.
And they lost in 1970. The reason they went to court to say we are not Hindus, we should not be counted, because one of the clause of constitution is that all Hindu religion temples are under control of government in some way, some indirect control. But minority religions are not in our constitution. So they wanted to be classified as a minority religion so that the government cannot interfere in what they do.
My God, બધું આ તો રિલિજનમાં તો બધું
થોડા વખત પહેલા આવ્યું હતું આપણે, મને ખબર નથી સ્વામિનારાયણના મહારાજ હતા કે બીજા હતા, મોટું અમદાવાદમાં સ્કેન્ડલ થયેલું યંગ બોયઝ ને એક્સપ્લોઇટ કરતા હતા. That was a સ્વામિનારાયણ કે કોઈ બીજા ધર્મ આપણે
There were a lot of things about that in અમદાવાદમાં. એ પણ એ જે આ બાપ્સ જે કહે છે સ્વામિનારાયણ જે BAPS એ નહીં, પણ જરા સ્વામિનારાયણમાં પાછા 4-5 જુદા એ છે.
પેલા કયા આ પરથી કઈ નામ હતું એમને પકડ્યા હતા?
ખબર નથી, પણ એ લોકો પેલા વડતાલનું જે સ્વામિનારાયણ પંથ છે ને ત્યાંનું ગ્રુપ હતું, તેમાં કઈક હતું એવું બધું.
મેન તો વડતાલમાંથી જ આ બાપ્સ થયા પછી, રાઈટ રાજુ?
એ ખબર નથી, પણ બાપ્સ ઇઝ ધ બિગેસ્ટ.
મેન આઈ થિંક
બાપ્સ ઇઝ ધ બિગેસ્ટ. પછી રાજકોટનું પાછું છે, they are also, કારણ કે અમે ત્યાં ચાંદોદમાં નર્મદાના where I grew up, on this side of Narmada, on the other side of the Narmada, they have built a huge temple. They call it a Nilkant Dham.
Right, we went there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge place.
Yeah,
it's a huge place.
Well, I don't think
very very nice things, બધું પણ હવે બધું distorted તો હોવાનું જ બધે.
Yeah.
If we go back to Buddhism.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the next slide. So we talked about meditation on Buddha. There are 3 centers: head center, throat center, and heart center, which essentially correspond some of that to Kundalini system, and we talked about that. So let's move on. Enlightenment. The concept of projection and transformation are central. All phenomena are projection of mind. That's one idea. Mind itself does not exist. That's a second idea. Mind is a conglomerate, sort of temporary transitional phenomenon which creates an illusion of a consciousness. It's an empty in its being, and although empty, mind manifests everything without obstruction. So everything that we perceive in an illusory way is perceived through a consciousness which itself is fleeting in nature. That is the idea. All right, let's move on. We talked about the similarities earlier, a lot of things about transmigration, rebirth, all those things are very common. Karma theory and all of those things are common between Hinduism and Jainism as well as Buddhism. And they are essentially similar, but some different explanations are there. But ideas are essentially, the gross ideas are same. All right, let's move on. So what are the major differences? I think I came up to this point. They do not accept Veda as the authority, one. They do not accept Atman as the ultimate reality. They call it Anatman or Shunyata. And they don't believe in God per se. God in the sense of Krishna or Vishnu or Shiva or whatever we believe it to be. So they are essentially neutral, neither yes nor no. Affirmative, neither affirmative nor negative. Buddhist does not accept any Hindu god either as equivalent or superior to Buddha. Theravada Buddhism do not worship images of Buddha. So that's important part. Mahayana sect considers Buddha as the highest being akin to Brahman of Hinduism and worships them in the form of images and icons. Like if you go to Thailand and all those places where big statues of Buddhas are there and everywhere. So that is primarily concept of Mahayana. Buddhists consider the world to be full of sorrow and regard ending sorrow as the chief aim of life. Refuge in the Buddha, Sangha and Dharma are the three cardinal requirements of eightfold pathway. Sangha means union, you know, or sort of combined together with different people. All right, let's move on. We talked about Nagarjuna last time. Nagarjuna will be probably among the most well-known theologian of Buddhism, who did a lot of work. And Mahayana Buddhism owes a great deal of theology to Nagarjuna per se. He appears to have been around 200 BC, but the individual history of who he was is unknown. It appears that he came from South India in Tamil Nadu. That is all we know. When did he die and all those things are very poorly known. But a lot of things that we know of Buddhism now was written by Nagarjuna, as it is known throughout the world. The idea of Shunyata is a sort of contribution of Nagarjuna. And Nagarjuna's important is also true in the sense that when Gaudapada emerged in the 5th century or 6th century, he was very well versatile about Buddhist ideology that Nagarjuna had propagated. And his disciple was Govindapada, and Govindapada's disciple was Shankaracharya. So what Shankaracharya did was sort of understood Nagarjuna's concept, understood the divergence of Gaudapada, and created a theological framework. That is what Keval Advait became. So a lot of things that Keval Advait has directly coming from Nagarjuna's concept. Either he embraced some of the ideas or refuted some of the ideas. But everything that he did was primarily derived either as an affirmation of Nagarjuna or refutation of Nagarjuna. Call it that way. For the purpose of argument, for the debate and discussion and those kind of things. Besides that, obviously, Shankaracharya had a lot of debates with the Karmakanda aspect of Hinduism too. You know, so he basically kind of changed the direction of Hinduism, but the direction came from Buddhism to Hinduism and then reform of Hinduism in a different way. So call it that way. So Buddha was asked a question about, now this is coming back. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you finish first, go ahead.
Yeah, Buddha's question answer is basically about what the world is empty about. You know, so the question is, what is meant, Lord, by the phrase world is empty? Buddha replies, it is empty ananda of self, or anything that is a nature of self. That is what he says. Now let me explain the self idea, how Vedanta will look at that. If you think in terms of self as two things, self as a jiva, S, not capital but small s, and self as a Atman, capital S. So Vedanta says there is a S capital self, that is Atman, that is a consciousness that exists throughout the ages, neither end, neither beginning nor end. The self, S is not the S capital, but small s, jiva, is the one that comes and goes. So what Vedanta will say, is that this part of self is always there. What is not there permanently is the small one. Now, Buddha does not distinguish between those two things. When he talks about self, he's combining everything into one. Because he doesn't accept the idea of capital S self. So when he talks about self doesn't exist, what he is talking about, at least from Vedantic perspective, he's talking about Jivatman. Atman that is conjoined with the Jiva. That is what he is talking about. That is how Vedanta will explain. So that's important part. Because if you think in level 1 and level 2, level 1 is a Jiva or small self. And level 2 will be bigger self. Buddha stops at first level, doesn't go beyond that at all. So when he talks about no self, he's talking about Jivatma. Am I making sense? Dinesh bhai and Pratap, yeah, Naina Ben also, yeah.
ના રજનીભાઈને ફિનિશ કરવા દો પછી હું કહું છું.
No, I don't want to. My previous question would sidetrack all discussion, so I will not talk about this. But just go back into Jivatma and Atma. So the Jivatma is a small s and Atma is a big S. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Jivatma is the one that is a mind, body, intelligent complex. So
That's the body itself.
Body and mind combined together. We are Jivatma. When we think in terms of my individual existence, I am talking about body, mind, intelligent complex. That is what self is. But Atman that we talk about in Hinduism, that Atma Amarche, that Atma is S capital.
Correct.
That is the basic difference.
Yeah, but Buddha stopped at the Jivatma. He said that Jivatma doesn't exist. So what did he say exactly? What is his wording?
Is empty of everything. So it's impermanent, which accepts. That is basically, it's an illusion. It's an impermanent thing that comes and goes. So there is nothing beyond that.
So there is no reincarnation in Buddhism then?
No, there is, but we'll come to that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go, Naina.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the same thing. Is there any reincarnation in Buddha? Because suppose Khali Buddha small s much any philosophy ema hoy, so when the person dies, so what is he connecting to the when the birth takes place? Does he connect with both the things or no?
Well, that was the major argument of Shankaracharya when he disputed Buddhist theology. But how Buddhists will explain what they say, how does it get connected to this non-self and reincarnation? They'll explain that too. And Shankaracharya will come and say, that is nonsense. So I will come to that point. Yeah. All right. Dinesh bhai.
11.
So, because Buddha doesn't believe in big S, is that why they said that there is no consciousness comes and goes, and there is not a constant consciousness?
That's right. There is no permanent consciousness. Yeah.
Because he doesn't believe in big S.
Precisely.
Okay.
So they said that I am not the body and body is not mine. I am the Atma or soul. So this is what you are talking?
Well, soul is a soul is a word in English which can mean both Atman and Jivatman both. Because again, Christianity also same problem. You know, when they talk about soul, they don't differentiate Atman and Jivatma. They use soul as one entity. So when we translate Atma and Jivatma both as soul, it becomes confusing.
Okay, so then person dies, then Atma goes away. There is a big S.
Yeah, Atma doesn't go anywhere. Atma is like a space.
Yes.
You know, so it has no place to go. It is a Jivatman, which is the mind intelligent complex. It's that carries all the impressions of life into the next life. You think in terms of three things: body, intelligence and mind, and Atman.
Right.
The body goes away, disintegrates into nothing.
Right.
Jivatma, the mind and intelligent complex, move on to a new body. And Atman is always there as a background underneath that regardless of what.
So Atman સાથે જીવન, mind will always go with that.
Precisely the point. Yeah.
Oh,
Daniel Bhai was saying something.
Rajesh bhai, you could introduce for Hinduism, for the Vedanta part, the three terms here: Sthul, Sukshma, and a Karan. And you can give an analogy here also that something like Karana. See, the Sthul and Sukshma are at the individual level. Even Karan is at the individual level. But something beyond that is universal. So here, something universal exists. You know, there are different terms, but you could introduce this. This is called Vyashti. This is the individuality. Individuality remains, but it is not going anywhere. You know, if I take another body, it is not the same Anil that is going to go. There is no physical thing that moves from here to there.
physical body is gone. Yeah.
Ground is there. And both of these things will give, to some extent, will say that I have some impressions, I have some vasanas, I have something in my mind. So what transmigrates in our Siddhanta is the Sukshma